Hi everyone, that's our citizen hype video to get you psyched about the lost art of citizenship. I'm Larry Platt, the co-founder of the Philadelphia Citizen, and welcome to the first installment of our ultimate job interview. This election cycle, there will be no shortage of issues-related forums and horse race coverage from my brethrens in the media. Tonight we wanted to do something a little different. We wanted to engage experts in the art of the job interview to dive deep into the character traits and qualifications for the leadership position of the $6 billion corporation that is the city of Philadelphia. And we want to do this with you. So over the past 6 weeks or so, we've crowdsourced an actual job description for mayor with responses from fellow citizens in, I believe, Jessica Press was the person who did all this work. I believe we got responses from 46 of the 48 zip codes of Philadelphia. And you can check it out through the QR code on the card you've been given. And that will be the basis going forward for how we think about, or how we recommend we think about hiring for this all-important position. So if you want to, and speaking of that card, if you want to write a question tonight, write it on that card and pass it to the center where we'll have people picking it up at 6:45 and 7:15. And at 7:15 or thereabouts is when we will start taking your questions, your job interview questions. So if you like what you see tonight, come to the other forums that we have scheduled. That's Tuesday, January 13, where the applicants for this job will be Maria Canona-Sanchez and Jeff Brown. Tuesday, February 7th, Alan Dom and Rebecca Reinhart. Tuesday, February 21st, Helen Gim and Sherelle Parker. And we'll have others to announce as the race develops. Before we get to tonight's brave candidate, former Councilmember Derek Green, a big shout out to our sponsors. Every Voice, Every Vote, a wonderfully innovative, collaborative project managed by the Lenfest Institute for Journalism, and Diversified Search Group, the nation's oldest woman-founded and woman-run executive search firm in the nation, founded by force of nature Judy von Seldenik, who many of you know. If we could ever get her to run for mayor, we wouldn't have had to have these kind of forums. And how about our host here, the Fitler Club, one of our city's newest crown jewels. We're really lucky to have to partner with the Fitler Club. And finally, our partners at WURD Radio, the state's only black-owned talk radio station, one of the only 3 left in the country, celebrating its 20th birthday this year. Happy birthday, WURD. Let's hear it for WURD. So, and WURD is broadcasting live tonight and through the series. Now, to our panel. Right next to Derek, Jim Langston of the aforementioned Diversified Search. Next to him, Michael Haugen of the GH Smart Advisory Firm. Next to Michael is Lori D. Jones-Brown, CEO of Philabundance. And our, last but not least, former Mayor Michael Nutter. And I should plug Mayor Nutter and I and Atlanta Mayor Kasim Reed have just started this new podcast called How to Really Run a City. And if you haven't checked it out, it is so much fun. And also smart but mostly but mostly it's like just.
So you say.
But mostly it's just like we get together and it's really entertaining. I'm sorry? It is the 17th most listened to government-related podcast in the nation. There may be only 20 such podcasts, but yeah.
17 with a bullet.
So before turning it over to Jim first, because Jim will ask 15 minutes, Then Michael will do 15 minutes, and then Lori, 7 minutes of questioning, and Mayor Nutter, 7 minutes of questioning. But before we get to that, Mayor Nutter, I want to call on you for a comment or a statement that you said you wanted to make.
Thank you, Larry. Mike Markin, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, because I wasn't getting the, I did the thing and I wasn't hearing it. Thanks for having me here tonight. I was wondering, on that 17th most listened to, I had been wondering how many podcasts there were out there. But it is a lot of fun and very informative. So I was out of town the past couple weeks, and there's apparently been a fair amount of media discussion on the topic of the mayor's race that involved my name, which is kind of surprising. I want to let all of you know I am not running for mayor of the city of Philadelphia in 2023 or in any other odd-numbered year into the future. But I'm pleased to be a part of this, and my work is focused on poverty and income inequality and actually trying to stand up a center for public service and policy at the University of Pennsylvania, and that's how I'm going to spend my time, at least here in Philadelphia, and being involved in a different way in this mayor's race. But I am not running for mayor.
Thank you. Mayor Nutter, I'm glad you clarified that because I had some questions of my own for your part of
That would be
the
on
ultimate
another-
job interview.
yeah.
We could switch places. I can come here, I can interview you, you interview me.
We're all good.
So thank you, Mayor Nutter. And let's get the ball rolling. Jim, why don't you conduct a job interview here for 15 minutes?
You bet. Well, thank you. And thanks, Larry, and thanks, everyone, for being here. And it's an honor to be talking with you tonight, Derek.
It's a pleasure.
And my fellow panelists, welcome. So the city of Philadelphia, large, complex entity with many external constituencies, over 25,000 employees in 50 departments. Can you describe for us your leadership style? Which specific experiences you would draw upon to effectively lead an enterprise of this size and complexity?
So now first of all, this is a job interview. I did not bring my Myers-Briggs type indicator. I'm not sure if I'm ENFJ or ENFP. I don't remember that. But when you talk about leadership style, and from my perspective, when you have a city the size of the city of Philadelphia, it's important in leading not only the city of Philadelphia, but the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And I would say my leadership style is one that I've learned from former mayors. I've talked with Mayor Wilson Good, and I know when he was mayor, he was someone who was very collaborative, and he took City Hall to the community. When I think of Mayor and former Governor Ed Rendell, who focused on Center City and bringing the city back from the brink of collapse by really focusing on how we move our city forward, especially from an economic development perspective. When I think of former Mayor John Street and his focus on neighborhoods and communities and doing things that people had not seen in a long time, like streets being plowed and abandoned cars being removed. And former Mayor Nutter, and from the work he has done, really putting the city on a national stage, but also reducing gun violence to levels we had not seen in a long time. So my style of leadership is a collaborative style. You know, my staff and city council would come to me with different issues and concerns because I'm only one person. I've had a lot of different experiences. I've been a small business lender, small business owner. I've been elected twice citywide and here in the city of Philadelphia as an at-large member of city council. Have had national leadership experience as the national president of Democratic municipal officials and also served on the National League of Cities Executive Committee and Board. So for me, my leadership style is someone that's going to listen to people who have perspectives different than me, really get a perspective on how we can move our city forward, and understand that it's not just me as the mayor of the city of Philadelphia, it's we and how we move our city forward.
Thank you. As a follow-up to that question, organizations this size, typically you'll face multiple conflicting priorities. Can you give us an example where you've had to manage conflicting priorities and be specific about the outcomes?
So I can say one that I can relate to as chair of the Gas Commission, and we're the oversight entity for Philadelphia Gas Works. I know Mayor Nutter, you liked PGW quite a bit. But as chair of the Gas Commission, I've always had a perspective on dealing with issues of climate change and making sure that we address issues in our city. But as chair of the Gas Commission, we also had to do things that can benefit the citizens in the city of Philadelphia. So as someone who lives in Mount Airy, and I focus on a lot of different climate change work as a city council member, I've been endorsed by various groups that focus on those issues, but we had an opportunity to do a public-private partnership with PGW, with one of our liquefied natural gas facilities. And so I had to make a hard decision because we had an ability to bring in some revenue that's not just coming from ratepayers, but I had some people who would be really concerned on that type of decision. And I had a very bad ballot position when I ran for re-election in 2019, and some wards decided I'm not going to support you because of the position you took as chair of the Gas Commission. But for me, understanding that yes, climate change is an existential threat, but when you have homeowners in South Philadelphia or West Philadelphia, and we had the ability to bring in some revenue that can help them to reduce their heating bill as chair of the Gas Commission and making that hard decision by doing that public-private partnership, to me, that was a decision that needed to occur because we needed to find a way to address issues like that. So sometimes you have to have a decision that some of your friends may not like, but you have to make the decision that you think is best for the city as a whole.
Thank you. Moving on to financial oversight and responsibility. A city has an operating budget of approximately $6 billion. It's an incredible fiscal responsibility for a mayor, requiring a certain amount of financial savvy and acumen. Can you describe for us some of your experiences in developing and managing budgets and how you would ensure that the city of Philadelphia remains fiscally sound?
Well, for me, the most recent budget we just had, it was one of my last legislative acts as a member of City Council. Now, I was the past president of the Pennsylvania Municipal League, so we worked and had conversations with the governor's office on a regular basis. April was the month that the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania brought in the highest amount of revenue in 1 month in its history. And so historically, what we often hear from City Hall and some from the mayor's office, that you cannot reduce taxes, and if you reduce taxes, you're going to have to cut services. And I knew from being past president of the Pennsylvania Municipal League and the dollars that were coming into the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, that we could also make some real changes here in the city of Philadelphia. We had $1.4 billion that came in from the American Rescue Plan. And so I said, we're not going to take that false narrative that we can't reduce taxes, both for residents and non-residents, and also provide dollars for city services and public safety. And so I put together what I called the Green Plan, and I had to get the mayor, my other members of City Council to agree with this proposal because it provided an opportunity to reduce taxes to the lowest level we've seen in decades, but still provide more services and more dollars for public safety, and also more services and quality of life issues that many citizens were dealing with and concerned about coming out of COVID-19. So I've had a real strong mastery of the city budget as a former finance chair, because I'm no longer in city council, understanding the dynamics of how the budget works, and also having the relationships and knowledge with people at the state level, with the Commonwealth, and also locally. So in reference to managing the budget, I knew we were able to get a budget done that was going to provide more services to the citizens of the city of Philadelphia, reduce taxes, especially for small businesses. And as me, as someone who's a former small business owner, and I know what it's like to try to meet a payroll, as well as being a former small business lender, I was able to bring those experiences in those areas, as well as my knowledge of the budget, to be able to pass a budget and get other independently elected officials to support what we call the Green Plan to get that done.
Thank you. As a follow-on to that, what are some of the challenges you might anticipate in managing a budget of this size?
Well, some of the challenges you anticipate when you have a budget, and every year as we go through the budget process, you have different constituencies who are going to say, well, we need more resources for what we're trying to do. Coming out of COVID-19, arts and culture community has been really decimated. Small businesses, issues in how we deal with public safety, and a whole range of issues. So you have to make some hard decisions. As a mayor, you got to make some decisions on how we're going to balance the budget. We have to have the budget balanced by the new fiscal year being July 1. So you have to make some decisions that are really critical on how you move the city forward. And sometimes you have to tell some people that you know that you've supported, we're going to have to make some reductions in order to move Philadelphia and actually have a better economy.
Thank you. Moving on to team building. It's a critical for any leader, particularly a mayor of a city, one of the largest cities in the U.S., Philadelphia. I'd like to talk about how you go about building your team. How would you identify the talent, the particular skills that you would need to staff an administration?
So when you're trying to build a team, you need to look at not only the resume, background, but also do what we're doing, having real conversations, look people in the eye and get a perspective. How have they dealt with very difficult situations? Are they willing to push back? I've often said I want to have, and people have used the phrase team of rivals, and I don't want to say rivals, but you want to have people on your team who are willing to say to you, no, Derek, I think you're wrong, and this is why. I've always had that type of staff in either city council or as president, Democratic municipal officials or other experiences. I want people to come to me and give me their perspective. I don't want someone to just agree with me just because I'm in a position, because we're not going to be able to get things done effectively if you have yes people. You want people to have real backgrounds, experience, and different experiences, a wide range of experiences. Some of my friends will be surprised if I brought all the people that I talk to on a regular basis or have connections with in one room at a time. There would be some people really surprised to see who's in that room, because you need to have that type of perspective. So when you're trying to build a team, you need to make sure you have people that have the backgrounds, the credibility, the experience, the diversity that are going to make sure that you're getting all the type of input you need to make a real effective decision.
And that raises the question, can you just share with us some examples from your past where you've done something of this size and scope, and some of the lessons that you may have learned in hiring best teams?
So in reference to, one, not only my campaign as well as my experience as a staff member, but when I think about other organizations I've been involved in, either from National League of Cities, being a board member or executive committee, and trying to think of who is going to be the type of people we need for our team going forward, or even as president of the Pennsylvania Municipal League, trying to make sure that we have mayors from smaller cities and medium-sized cities all part of our conversations, are going to be part of my cabinet, because you need to have that type of diversity. Now, people are going to say they've had this type of experience in reference to being mayor. Unless you've been a mayor in the past, you never know what's going to come to you at that time. But making sure that as you're going forward, you're going to have those experiences and backgrounds and learn from others. Talk to other mayors. Talk to other people who've had those experiences to make sure you're making the best decision going forward.
Thank you very much. Last question. One of the things that we at Diversified Search have learned a great deal about is leadership and how leaders lead. So one of the hallmarks is an ability to inspire people to achieve exceptional performance by setting goals, transparent, clear vision. Can you share with us an example when you've done this, created a vision, established goals, motivated people and held them accountable? And then along those lines, tell us about a time when things didn't go quite as planned and what you did and what you've learned.
So one of the things that did not go quite as planned is my public bank initiative, and that was an idea that was very interesting and different and unique, but it was something to me with a vision of how we can use city resources as a way to help small businesses grow, something we have not seen in other parts of the country, a municipal public bank. And it was something that I had an idea and a vision that came to me from others on how we can grow the city of Philadelphia. So we had to sell that idea not only to members of city council, not only to the public at large, but be able to present an idea that was new, novel, and unique. Now, it didn't go quite the way I planned, even though we had a lot of work and a lot of conversations with the administration and others, but it was something that I think was important for the city of Philadelphia to move the needle forward about economic development and how we're going to grow our city.
Very good, thank you. And the last question, last 2 minutes, is how will you celebrate success with your teams? How do you do it? How have you done it in the past? How would you do it moving forward?
So I think you celebrate success by talking about, what happened, how were you successful, but also talk about some of the things that did not work. I think you have to learn from your successes. For me, you learn more from losing than winning. I ran for the first time in 2007. I learned more from that race than the 2 times that I won. So you need to be able to come together as a group and say, yes, we were successful, but how can we do better going forward? Because you can't just rest on your laurels, and you need to focus, to me, yes, we made that successful victory, but also what were some of the things that we almost did not come to a success in, and learn from that and move forward.
Thank you very much. It's the end of my time. I turn it over to Michael.
No Myers-Briggs? No. No Myers-Briggs type indicator?
No, not yet. Not yet.
Not,
We're
oh, not yet?
yet.
You're going to take my blood too? Right now.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jim. So a couple of questions here for you, and thank you for coming tonight. We've heard a lot about the great variety of experiences you've had across your life and career. What specific part of your background will you pull from the most to help you represent the citizens of Philadelphia?
So as a 2-part answer, I would say one from my grandfather and one from my son. So my grandfather on my father's side is someone who I never got a chance to meet in person. He bought our family farm in 1943 in Greenville, North Carolina, in Pitt County. And you can imagine what that environment was for an African-American man at that time. And so he was able to do that even though there were some who came to the home and said, listen, if we knew that they were selling this farm to a black man, we were going to forcibly remove you from the farm. So the fact that he was able to do that and we were able to maintain our farm all this time, and we still have the farm, we don't grow tobacco anymore, just corn and cotton, but the fact that he really did not have a formal education, but he knew that education was important. And so he brought together other black farmers to purchase a bus to make sure that, at that time you worked on the farm early in the morning, and then by the time you finished your chores, you then walked to South Aiken Colored School. He knew that education was going to be very important for not only for his children and grandchildren, but the future of that community. So he was able to organize other farmers to buy a bus, and they were able to get people to school on time. So all of my uncles drove that bus. My uncle Adolph, Augustus, Lennon, Jesse, Eddie. My dad was the junior. He was the rebel. He didn't want to drive the bus. He wanted to work on the school newspaper. But the fact that he persevered and my grandfather had a vision of a future that's going to be better for his grandchildren is something that inspires me every day in the work that he does in reference to cooperative economic developments and other things.
I'm sorry to interrupt, just to make sure we have enough time to get through. And your son, you said, was the second part of the answer?
Well, my son, because my son is on the autism spectrum, and the fact the day I announced my campaign was his first day at St. Joe's University in a post-secondary program, and he graduated from Hill Freeman High School.
Congratulations.
And he's someone that inspires me every single day, the fact that in spite of the challenges he deals with, and he may have a meltdown or a challenge, he washes it off and he keeps moving forward. So it gives me the energy that in spite of the difficulties trying to be an at-large member of city council, run for mayor, that every day is a new day and you keep pushing forward. So through the experiences my grandfather had about a vision for a better tomorrow, and the fact that my son every single day fights through challenges, inspires me to do what I do here in the city of Philadelphia.
Excellent. Thank you very much. In what situations are you more likely to be decisive? And in what situations are you less likely to be decisive?
I would say I'm more likely to be decisive when there's an issue and someone is in harm's way. I have a tendency to just run into a situation. Tend to be a person of a big stature. And so when I see someone's in crisis, I really don't like bullies. And so when I see someone that's in a crisis situation, they need some help, the person's going to run into that situation because I feel that I have a certain size of an intellect that I can help someone in that scenario. In a situation, I'm less likely to be decisive if it's someone that I think that they can handle it a little bit. I'm going to allow them to do what they need to do. They don't need me to jump in and provide support because they can get through the problem. So those are the situations I would say when I'm more decisive and less decisive.
And what about when it's your call and you're less decisive? Just to follow up a little bit.
Well, that's some of that back and forth of deciding, does this person really need my support in that situation? It's kind of like the caterpillar and the butterfly. Do I just jump in and keep pushing that person when they may need to do it on their own? And so sometimes I pull back a little bit because I'm making that decision. Should I be helping them in this situation, or is this a situation when that person needs to kind of push through? And I think about my own son, thinking at times when it's easy for me to just jump in and help him in a situation, as opposed to giving him, standing back and let him work through that situation. That's a situation I think any parent has, of when do you decide to come in and help versus allowing your child to grow on their own. And so those are the times where it's hard to make that decision, but as someone who has a child and as other parents in this room, you learn over time, and ultimately you hope that you gave them the background experience and the faith that they're going to be successful.
Excellent, thank you. Describe a situation where you changed your mind. What adapted and what changed that viewpoint?
That's a little difficult, because I do have a very strong, focused personality. And I'm trying to think of a situation where I've changed my mind in a real substantive way. And there's been times where I have been in city council and I've wanted to make a speech and change a perspective on an issue, and I pulled back because sometimes you need to listen more before you speak. And there's been I'm just trying to think through some ideas and situations in city council where I was going to come in and say, well, no, it's got to be my way. We got to do it this way. And I said, no, let's pull back a little bit. I'm thinking about the Green Deal we talked about, where I was able to get other members of city council to pass legislation which reduced our taxes and helped small businesses. Now, I could have introduced a bill to do that, but I knew that Catherine Gilmore Richardson and Isaiah Thomas were going to, and I suggested them amend the legislation. Now, I could have put in my own legislation, but I knew that I was more likely than not running for mayor, and I didn't want the conversation to get into, well, you're only doing this because you're running for mayor. So I said, you know what, let me sit back. I'm going to give them the ideas and let them move forward on the legislation, because it's not about me getting credit. It's about trying to get this goal accomplished. So my initial idea was, well, let me do the legislation, but then I said, you know what, it's not about me. It's about how do we get this change done and let them do it, because I thought it was important to get the job done. So that's a situation where I changed my initial thought, and I have a very strong personality, and I had to say, you know what, you're right. Let me stop and let's let them get the legislation done.
Great, thank you so much. When you think about the mayor job, it's very complicated. As Jim said, the budget is large, the number of employees is incredibly large. What are the top 3 metrics that you'll keep track of to see if you're doing a good job or not?
Well, I think 3 is not enough.
But if you have a dashboard, what 3 would be at the
you
top?
have to, I think the dashboard is multiple metrics in reference to what's our unemployment, what's our poverty rate, what's the number of homicides we've had in the city of Philadelphia, number of shootings, where are we in reference to overdoses, where are we in reference to the number of homeless people in the city of Philadelphia, what's the educational attainment rate for young people in the 9th grade or graduating from high school. I think it's not just one metric. You need to have more than just 3, because when I think about the city of Philadelphia and when I think where we want to be in a green administration, my goal is that, July 4th, 2026 is the semi-sesquicentennial. Now, I just learned how to say that a couple months ago. But it's the 250th anniversary of this nation. The entire world will be looking at the city of Philadelphia. We'll have the World Cup, Major League Baseball All-Star Game. I know we're working on the NBA All-Star Game. Hopefully we'll have the Winter Classic for you hockey fans. But people are going to be looking at the city of Philadelphia from around the globe. And so when you talk about those metrics, where are we on July 4th, 2026 in reference to economic development? How many businesses, especially businesses of color, have been created and have more than just one employee? What's our number of homicides? What's the situation in reference to opioid deaths and homelessness and educational attainment and all those issues? So when I think about that date, July 4th, 2026, We should have metrics going into the administration of where we want to be, and then adjust that every year. Some things that are working well, we continue to do those. Things that are not working, we need to readjust. I mean, we have measurement every single year as individuals. I mean, many people do a New Year's resolution. I think I put it in the paper, and I'm going to try to run more and eat less. I'm still working on that. Corporations do the same thing in reference to their quarterly goals in reference Q1 and Q2 and Q3. So we as a city, we need to do the same thing. We need to have measurements in reference to where we're going to be. And so some of those metrics, it needs to be more than 3, because we need to make sure, how are we assessing us as a city? And also, how are we letting people know what we're doing and how we're trying to achieve those metrics, especially when the entire world will be looking at us July 4th, 2026.
Thank you so much. If we go out and interview some of your current and former colleagues, what are they going to say they like best about you as a leader?
I would say what they like best about me is my dry sense of wit. But I think they would say, you know, Derek doesn't get caught up in the highs and lows. He's very even keel. Some would say he's not enough of a show horse. He's more of a workhorse and really focused on getting things done. That he tries to develop collaborative relationships with everyone, regardless of their background or difference. That he's someone that listens to everyone and gets a sense of where things are and try to move people in a direction that's a consensus direction as a team. And I've done that based on the legislation I've been able to get passed and some of the work experience I've had, not only in City Council, but outside of City Council.
So a follow-up question to that, when we talk to them, what are they going to say are the areas you have most to grow in?
Come again?
Where do you have most to grow? If those are the areas they like the most, what are the areas they'd like to see you continue to grow?
Well, I would say some of the areas they would like me to see me grow is probably tout more of my background and some of the things I've gotten done. Let people know some of the achievements I've made. I think they also would like me, at times I'm very deliberative, and at times I can be very direct, and I think balancing a little more of that going forward. I think those are some things they would like to see me grow and do. And you know, I delegate, and I've gotten better in delegation, but I'm someone that likes to get involved in a lot of different issues and understand each issue. And as over time, over the years, as I've gotten more seasoned, I've been able to delegate more and learn, understand the benefit of delegation. And that was hard initially coming from a city council staffer to a city council member, because as a staffer, I would try to do everything, but you can't do everything because you're the council member. There's only certain things that you can do as a member of city council that your staff can't do. Same thing as mayor. There's certain things that you need to make a decision on, and you make that decision even though you're being collaborative. And so those are some things I think some would say I can improve upon.
Excellent, thank you so much. Last question. If you were granted 2 or 3 areas of knowledge, if you remember in the movie Matrix, if you've seen it, you could like type in a keyboard and instantly learn something. If that technology was available, what would be the skills or the knowledge you'd like to have to add to all the cumulative experiences you've had in your life to be the most effective mayor?
Do I have to take a red pill or a blue pill?
It's up to you.
I think being able to, that's an interesting question, because to some degree, having knowledge of what's going to happen in the future, it would be definitely something would be beneficial, because you know what's going to happen going forward and how to do certain things. But if you had that future knowledge, would you be the same person you are today because you didn't have those life experiences?
So let's make the assumption it's today. If you could type into that keyboard today and download a couple things, what would you download today, just knowing what you know?
So I would download additional wisdom and ability to talk with people that I've never met to learn from them. People that have gone through some really significant challenges in their life, and to be able to hear from those people like my grandfather or other people in history to really get understanding of what they were actually going through at that time and be able to ask them questions about how you got through this, how you got through all the challenges, especially as an African-American man in the United States. You were able to get through these things in spite of all these things, and how you were able to push through and learn from those experiences from people from a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different perspectives.
Thank you so much.
We can move over to Lori, and I just want to say Lori's the CEO of Philabundance, also has a unique experience both in public, private, and the nonprofit sectors. Lori.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Councilman, it definitely is an honor, and thank you for being willing to be the first in this very unique way of
Do I get any bonus points for this? You know,
I
a
think
drink
you'll-
ticket after the event or something like that?
I think you'll
Fair
see on
enough.
primary day, right? So, we are still experiencing, I see people have masks on, we're coming through a really challenging moment in our history as a country, world, but really as a city. And so I'm wondering, as you look at how the city responded to the recent pandemic response, if you can talk about what you saw your role in as a leader in the city to really address this really challenging moment. What leadership skills did you bring, and then what specifically did you do to improve the lives of citizens through this period of time?
So that was a very, very challenging time period. And as someone who's an at-large member of City Council representing the entire city, thinking how can we provide service to citizens? And so early on in the pandemic, my staff was meeting every Monday on the phone. We used the old school phone calls, phone chains to kind of connect and how we were dealing with issues. Working with the Commerce Department and PIDC, and we were meeting Mondays, I think we would meet like 7 p.m. on ways we could fundraise and use some of the dollars to get money out on the street to diverse small businesses, because a lot of small businesses that I had relationships with were really hurting in the pandemic. Working kind of behind the scenes with friends who were starting different initiatives like Dr. Eli Stanford and trying to help that work that she was doing. But also just trying to communicate and be around. I started going back into City Hall in September of 2020. My wife got tired of hearing all of the Microsoft Teams meetings, and she got a real exposure to City Council. And so I was in City Hall basically almost every day. And then my staff, after we got our first round of vaccinations, were like, let's get back into City Hall. And I said, we'll talk together collectively, and if you're comfortable, we'll do that. So the second week of August of 2021, our office was back in City Hall 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Now, we took the steps and precautions that we needed to do, but what we're seeing is that people were calling our office because we were there. And when people had questions with license inspection, other departments, they were coming to our office because they knew that you were there addressing these issues. And so not only was I there, but my staff was there, and I commend them for willing to do that in that real concerning dynamic. Now, we weren't heroic like first responders who were doing this around the city in the early parts and throughout the entire pandemic, but to be able to be there when a person had a call or a question about like PHL Rent Assist or some of the other issues, and they couldn't get to other departments, being available, and if someone actually needed to come into the office because they couldn't get through other departments, we were there. So that was the thing that, from my experience, was helpful in our small way of trying to serve citizens in the city of Philadelphia, because at the end of the day, it's about servant leadership.
Thank you for that, and I want to talk about the citizens of Philadelphia. The reality is we live in a very diverse city. We think, talk about it being a city of neighborhoods. And so I was wondering, as a leader in the city, can you describe for us a time that you worked through a project, got something done that required really engaging with a variety of perspectives, a variety of individuals, maybe with competing views? So kind of walk us through how you took it from an idea to getting it accomplished while engaging the citizens of Philadelphia.
You make me go back to my mental Rolodex of activities. So there is different experiences I can think about. I can think about that we had a real challenging time during the pandemic in reference to how we would bring back opportunities in reference to hospitality, and the hotel tax was decimated because people were not going to hotels. And so the idea, and I started some legislation before the pandemic called the Philadelphia Hospitality Improvement Levy, which provides some additional dollars to allow us to attract conventions to the city of Philadelphia and major events. And so as we were coming out of the pandemic, I knew that because so many hotels and conventions, and being on the board of Convention and Business Bureau, and knowing that citizens were not getting paid because they didn't have those events, so we increased that legislation. So we had to talk with constituents and get people to support that type of legislation. And the mayor did not support it. So not only did I have to get members of city council, I had to talk with other unions and others to get a perspective on why that's going to be beneficial to the citizens of the city of Philadelphia, even though we're talking about increasing in expense. But at the end of the day, it was a way to bring additional dollars into the city of Philadelphia and get people to benefit from that. And so that's one experience. Most recently, I'm thinking coming out of the pandemic, areas from predatory lending legislation I've worked on, or others as well.
Thank you. I'm going to try to squeeze in 2 more questions really quickly. In the city of Philadelphia, nearly one in 3 children in our city are food insecure. So on any given night, nearly 1 in 3 kids across the city are going to bed hungry. We saw that exacerbated during the pandemic because of the global health pandemic that we were experiencing, but also we also saw it with the economic crisis. You talked a little bit earlier about public safety being a critical issue. Can you talk a little bit about how you've worked, kind of give us examples of how you've worked to really improve the quality of life of kids in our city?
So when I think about issues, and I think about education, and specifically I'm thinking about the school buildings that we have in the city of Philadelphia. I think about Francis Scott Key, which is in South Philadelphia, which has been operated continuously for 125 years. And the fact that my mother taught in the school district for 31 years, 26 years at Olney High School, and the fact she dealt with asbestos at her high school, when I was much younger. And when I was, as a member of city council, I remember there was a time we were in the caucus room having a briefing with the school district, and I got a call that there was asbestos in my son's school. And so because of that, I really got to a point of not having real trust in the school district in reference to how they were dealing with asbestos. And during the pandemic, when the schools were closed and the district was saying, well, we're going to address this issue you brought up, and while these schools are closed, we're going to really get through the asbestos issues. And then as we're coming, children come back to school, and masterman teachers were afraid to actually go into their school because of the challenges. And the district over this whole time period said that they were going to address the asbestos in our schools. And in the first session we came back in City Council in September of 2021, I got to a point, and I knew about the issues with a teacher from Meredith and Jackson who was diagnosed with mesothelioma, and reflecting on my mother and my son. And so we addressed some legislation. I introduced some legislation to say that we're not going to just rely on the school district of Philadelphia to address asbestos. We're going to have the city involved in making sure that before we say these buildings are safe, we're going to have the city do the inspection process. And so that's something, from my perspective, is going to make citizens and children safer going forward, not just school teachers like my mother or children like my son, but anyone that's in a school building, and making them safer going forward because of the fact that these are issues that we need to deal with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before we get to Mixmaster Mike, you all know that he raps. I just want to remind everyone, if you have questions, to write them on those cards and pass them to the center, I guess, and we'll have staffers pick them up. And after Mayor Nutter throws out some questions, we'll hear from you guys. Mayor Nutter.
Thanks. So in concert with the theme for the evening's job interview, I've obviously hired more than a few people in my time. But it's always the first question. Why do you want this job? And what do you hope to accomplish?
So I love the city of Philadelphia. I really, during the pandemic, got frustrated in seeing what other cities have been able to do in reference to using American Rescue Plan dollars and really do things to move their cities forward. You know, I believe Philadelphians should expect more and deserve better from our city. And every single day, people are not getting that. And so I'm running to be mayor, to be the 100th mayor of the city of Philadelphia, because I love the city. I want people to feel that when they pay their taxes, when they do things in the city of Philadelphia, they're getting a benefit. I want people to feel the pride of being a Philadelphian. I think we've lost that. I think we've lost the hope and vision that this is the city, this is the birthplace of this nation. We talked about the 250th anniversary, the semi-sesquicentennial. I mean, I have pride in the city. I was born in the city. And I think we've lost that because people think that we're not going to get beyond the issues of homicides that we've had, the things that we should be doing in the city. So I want this job because I believe I can make a difference, because I've had a background and experience from a lot of different perspectives. I believe sometimes you don't choose the moment chooses you. And so I want this job to be able to make a difference so people can say, when we elected Derek Green as mayor, this city became a better city. And they say, I can really expect more and deserve better from Philadelphia.
So I appreciate that. But what are the three things that you want to accomplish as mayor of this city? We're going to assume that you've won. What are you going to do?
One, I want us to be a safer city, so we're going to have...
How are you going to do that?
We're going to reduce homicides.
How?
And we're going to do that in a couple ways. One, the fact that we're not going to have other mayors, like Mayoral Bowser is a friend of mine, recruit police officers from the city of Philadelphia to make their city safer. As you know, we're not nearly at the number of police officers that we should have in our city, so we're going to aggressively go after and recruit police officers that look like the city of Philadelphia through hiring bonuses. That's something that Seattle, Baltimore, and Newark are doing. And if you walk by the One Parkway building right now, you will see a sign from the Metropolitan Police Department where Mayoral Bowser, a friend of mine, is recruiting Philadelphians to make their city safe. In addition to that, we're going to take the Gun Violence Task Force, and I'm a former assistant district attorney. That is made up of not only the district attorney's office, but also the attorney general's office. And we're going to engage the Department of Justice to make sure that the city is safer by specifically focusing on guns and broadening the work they do. As you know, as mayor, you worked with Commissioner Ramsey, the district attorney at that time, and the other criminal justice partners in focus deterrence, and really targeted the areas of the city of Philadelphia where you saw the most gun violence.
If I only read the newspaper, I might be left with the impression that you and the district attorney might have a different view and philosophy on public safety. How are you going to fix that?
Well, the district attorney is an independently elected official.
I know.
And just like this past budget process where I was able to get other independently elected officials to support and adopt my plan, which is a green plan to reduce taxes and also provide public safety, I'm going to work with the district attorney's office and with the district attorney and say, Larry, we need to work to get things done. Now, I want you to be part of this engagement. I want you to be engaged in this process, but at the same point, knowing the way the Home Rule Charter works and the budget process, we're also going to find ways to get you more engaged to do what needs to be done. Now, that's...
What does that mean?
Well, that's by looking at the budget process. When I talked about the Gun Violence Task Force, which right now is the district attorney's office, is also the attorney general's office. I mean, I've just had a conversation with our U.S. attorney who wants to be more engaged in addressing gun violence and bringing those resources in. Today, we have a new governor, Josh Shapiro, the former attorney general, getting them also more engaged. So there are ways that we can do that, but at the end of the day, it takes collaboration, which is something you did with Commissioner Ramsey and the DA and the First Judicial District. And going to the district attorney and say, listen, you as DA, you represent the Commonwealth and the citizens of the city of Philadelphia. Right. And I know some of the things you've done in reference to bail reform and conviction integrity are great. But we also know there's issues in reference to your gun case convictions that are not at the level they should.
Let me ask you a couple other questions. Polls open in 118 days, 11 hours, 38 minutes, and 42 seconds.
But you're not running, right?
I am not running, but I pay attention to election. The one equalizer in a campaign is time. everybody gets the same amount of time. There are 9, 10, maybe more, not me, people who are running. How are you any different than anybody else that's running? I only get one vote, and I only get one way to hire a person for this job.
So when the citizens of the city of Philadelphia vote either through a mail-in ballot prior to or on election day, May 16th of this year, they're going to have to decide who has the vision, energy, temperament, and leadership to be the 100th mayor of the city of Philadelphia. And as mayor, you just can't focus on one issue at a time. It's not just economic development. It's not just public safety. It's not just education. It's someone who's had some real lived experiences in all of those issues. So when we think about all the candidates who are running, I'm the only former assistant district attorney on the Democratic side. I've been a small business owner, so I understand what it's like to meet a payroll. I've also been a small business lender as well. I've been elected citywide, representing citizens all around the city of Philadelphia. I've had national experience, both as president of Democratic municipal officials and been chair of the Gas Commission overseeing Philadelphia Gas Works, and my personal experience in reference to education. So when voters are thinking about who should be the next leader of the city of Philadelphia, they need to think that every mayor is going to have a crisis they never anticipated. Yep. You had a recession, others had 9/11, so you're going to have a challenge that's going to confront you that no other mayor had before. So what's your perspective running in?
I appreciate it. Let's talk about the first day. First Monday in January 2024. Inauguration starts about 10. You'll be mayor about 11:30, quarter to 12. What happens the rest of that day? First day in office? What are you going to do?
Well, prior to my first day in office, I've already come out of the primary.
No, day one.
Day one.
First day on the job.
First day on the job, I'm going to be out in the community. I'm going to be talking to citizens around the city of Philadelphia. I think, if I remember correctly, when you came into office, there was people around City Hall. You were shaking hands, meeting constituents.
That was the third day.
Okay, I'm sorry, third day. Third day. But so I'm moving it up. I'm moving it up the first day. First day. But the reason I say that is important because a mayor, yes, has to understand the budget, has to understand how to negotiate contracts, has to understand how the city operates, understand the home rule charter, but also the mayor is the leader. The person's got to provide vision for the city. And I think when I made my announcement, I say Philadelphians should expect more and deserve better from our city, I don't believe people feel that. I think people feel that we're not going to get better as a city. So that first day, I'm going to go around the city of Philadelphia. I remember when Mayor Street did the Neighborhood Transformation Initiative, and he went to neighborhoods all around the city, learning from those neighborhoods to come up with NTI. So day one, I'm going to go to the citizens of the city of Philadelphia and listen to them, because I don't think that happens enough as mayor, and get some perspectives about what's happening and hear them listening about how we're going to move the city forward.
That's great. Let me jump in because we're running a little bit behind, and you mentioned the citizens of Philadelphia. I'd like to get their voice in here, and so I'm going to kick it to, and actually before I do that, I want to ask one question myself, which I'm going to ask of every candidate. Would Councilmember Green, if you get elected mayor, would you commit to coming back for an annual job performance interview as mayor?
Once again, do I have to submit my Myers-Briggs type indicator?
No, it's all.
Listen, I'm as you know, we've had back and forth conversation on the record, off the record. I show up anywhere. That's part of my problem, that I'll go everywhere at any time to talk to anyone, and so absolutely.
Awesome. I'm going to kick it to Andrea from WURD to read some of your questions.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Andrea Lawful Sanders. I am the host of The Source on WURD Radio, Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays from 1 to 4 p.m. Forgive me for turning my back to all of you. Just give me a second. Let me talk to you. Thank you for being here. It is important, and so we've gotten a few of your questions, and I'm having the frog voice. The first one is, what frightens you most, Derek, about taking on this job? Why? And how will you deal with this fear?
So what was the most challenging was even thinking about the idea of running for mayor, because it is a very, and when I look at the most difficult jobs in the country, president, mayor of New York maybe, school board member, and that was even before COVID, before issues with CRT and all the other dynamics being very challenging. And so getting your head around, do I have the perspective to actually be mayor? And so that took me some time. And although people would say, oh, Derek, when are you running for mayor? And I was like, slow down. Just getting a sense of the enormity of the job, because it is a very difficult job. And so what scares me the most is not having enough time, because the most expensive commodity we have is time, and you never have enough time. So yes, I would love to go to every single neighbor on the first day in office, but I know realistically I'm not going to be able to do that, so you're going to have to prioritize. I know I want to talk to every constituent, go to every school, talk to every person, but you can't do that because you don't have enough time. So what scares me the most is not having enough time to get everything I want accomplished, and you have to prioritize. You're going to have to prioritize how you allocate dollars. You're going to have to prioritize your time, and so that's one of the challenges that really frighten me.
Okay, thank you. The second question is, how will you personally manage burnout in this role? If it comes with many stressors, how can we trust that you'll be caring for to show up fully every single day, for you to show up every single day? Who will ask this question?
I don't have readers yet, but if I did, I would give you my
Okay,
readers.
so let me see if I can, how will you
Mental health.
personally manage burnout in this role, right? It comes with many stressors. So how can we trust that you will be caring for yourself to show up fully every single day?
Well, I'll do what Mayor Street talked about, drink a lot of water.
Yeah.
But I think you have to have a balance, a work-life balance. I get up at a very early hour to work out. Either when it's warmer, I row, or I run, or I go to the gym. That's when I just think about things, and it gives me a chance to reflect on the day and prepare for the day. Being a person, a man of faith, I read a passage every morning. That also helps to center and ground me. And I talked earlier about my grandfather and my son. Seeing what my son does every single day and the challenges he deals with helps to inspire me every day. So it can be very daunting, but one of the things I really like about being a public servant, because it's about service, because you'll do something for someone maybe a year, 2, 3 years ago, and someone will come back in your life at a meeting or event and say, Derek, thank you for doing X, Y, Z. And I have a pretty good memory, but I'm getting a little more seasoned, and so my memory's starting to fade. But the fact someone will come up to you and say, you did something, and it may have just been a phone call, it may have been just an email, it may have been just a letter that you sent, and you helped that person. Maybe you didn't solve their problem, but you were able to move the ball forward. That's something that I really get out of this job. It's really, because it's about service. It's not about the titles, it's about how you can help people. And so that's something that I cherish, those moments, and I've come into block captain meetings, or I'm walking down the street, and I still get people from when I worked at Meridian Bank in Broad Glenwood that call me the Meridian Man, or the Shoe Man, because my wife and I had a ladies' shoe store on Germantown Avenue. Another reason why I don't have as much hair as more. But it's those experiences when you've been able to help someone. That's really, to me, why the vast majority of people, I know for me, why I've gotten into this business, is because it's the opportunity to help people. And that's what it should be about, because it's about servant leadership.
All right, so the final question is, the last line of the citizen job description says, you get to course correct the future of America's most historic city. What does that course correction look like for you in 1 to 2 sentences?
You're not going to listen to my answer? You're just going to walk away, go back to the radio?
I'm just giving you the whole floor so you can,
You're just going to go back to the source, right?
Yeah, right. What does course correction look like for you in the most historic city? You know what's been going on here. You've had some of those conversations tonight, and the people are really concerned. So what does course correction look like for you in order for this city to grow and move and thrive in a way that we haven't seen in a long time?
so I can give an answer no matter how long it takes?
1 to 2 sentences,
I'm doing
please.
John Street.
Channeling.
I'm just messing with you. Go ahead.
Let me take a moment to reflect on that, because I only have 2 sentences. Can they be run-on sentences? I told you I'm a teacher's kid. My mother was a teacher, so. So I would say it is a city where a young person and a more seasoned person look at the city with hope going forward, that it's a safer, cleaner, better city that's going to be even better than where it was in the past, in spite of all the historical challenges and difficulties we've had, that are looking forward to being a citizen in the city of Philadelphia.
Wow, you did all right. So, thank you all so much on behalf of WURD Radio. Larry, I'm turning it back over to you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Andrea. And we've kept you a little longer than we promised, but I want to thank this great panel. And Councilmember Green, I really want to thank you for your service. We were talking earlier about the rigors of the campaign, and I don't want to keep you from call time. So I apologize that we kept you a little longer, but I can't thank you enough for taking the time to do this innovative event, and we look forward to seeing you guys the next time. Thanks a lot.